So we're up. The Rebbe explained the pasuk of the question of the Chacham. Why does he say Eschem, you? Because the question really applies to the mitzvahs that come after Matan Torah. Because after Matan Torah, the main mitzvahs are b'maisa. The mitzvahs that the forefathers did, that was mainly the kavanah. After Matan Torah is the mitzvah. A person should think about all the kavanas of matzah and not eat matzah. He didn't fulfill the mitzvah. On the other hand, if he just eats the matzah and he has no kavanah, he fulfills the mitzvah. So what is it that it's dafke the maisa that is mamshir the mitzvah? That's why he's asking eschem, you, after Matan Torah. But the Rebbe argued it could still say, brought down from the Maimer, it could still say Oisonu. The Rebbe quoted from the previous Rebbe from the Maimer that he specifically is asking, why does the Chochem, the Ben Chochem, in this question ask, Mo ha'edus ha'chukim ha'mishpotim? He goes into the different categories of the different types of mitzvahs. If his question is, why do we do the mitzvahs b'maisa? Why is it important to specify the different kavanas, the mitzvah of the different categories? Just say, what is these mitzvahs b'maisa? Why specify them? But the Rebbe also brought down from the Friedrich Rebbe that the fact that the Ben Chochem uses the Loshen Eschem, so he makes a distinction. He says like this, even though he says Hashem Elokeinu, so the difference between the Chochem and the Rasha doesn't say Elokeinu. He just says Eschem. But the Chacham says Elokeinu, so he's including himself. It says our God. The Eibush says his God. But the way the Friedrich Rebbe words it, he says, although the Ben Chacham says Hashem Elokeinu, Memele includes himself part of the Jewish community. He says our God. But still, as the Friedrich Rebbe puts it, with regards to the Eidus, Chukim, Mishpotim, he says Eschem, as if he accepts the basic principle, yes, Hashem Elokeinu, and that would be for the commands in general, but Moa Eidus, Chukim, Mishpotim, but what he's challenging is the difference of Eidus, Chukim, Mishpatim. So the Rebbe is going to explain this in Ois Gimel. The Yuvan Behagdim will understand it by introducing Mashe Kosuv Kvet Kedushas Merichom Admur B'Mamore Dibura Maschil Zeh, what the Friedrich Rebbe writes in the Maimer that opens up with this opening, the same as our Maimer with the Yish'alcha bin Chomocher Leimer She'omrei b'Chag HaPesach HaRishon b'Voye La'aretz Habrisa Manas Lodri. He said this Maimer in the first Pesach when he came to the United States to settle here. So in that first Maimer, that's in Maimorim in Tovshin, in Pesach in Tovshin. So he says over there, when he asks the question, he says that the Ben Chochem asks the question, it says Eschem. So he says the fact, Yesha'alech Ben Chochem Ksiv Eschem, in the question of the Ben Chochem, it says, Mo'av Vatziv Hashem Elokeinu Eschem. The fact that he says you and not us, that seems to be like the Rasha. The Rasha also said lochem to you, eschem to you. He's using the wording like the Rasha used, as if it says you and not him. So he says it eschem. But in the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe Yad, so the Maimer asked, Tagam Shaben Chochem Omer Hashem Elokeinu. Although the Ben Chochem says Hashem our God, which he says our God, Shu Machnis Atzmai Bichlal Yisrael, he puts himself in the community of Israel, part of the Jewish people. He says Hashem Elokeinu Umikabel Olav Malchus Shemayim, and he accepts upon himself the yoke of the heavenly kingdom. He accepts it. He says Elokeinu Hashem Elokeinu. So the Friedrich Rebbe says, Harizau b'negeya leho'ike. That is it negeya as it touches the main. The main thing is Elokeinu, is our God. Aval b'negeya leproto inyonim de'edus chukim mishpatim. But when it comes to the details of these matters, edus chukim mishpatim, when he says mo ha'edus ha'chukim mishpatim, hu oimer eschem. Over here he says Eschem. So what the Maimer is explaining here, the Meloshon HaMaimer Mashma, so this language of the Maimer, it's Mashma, Shahadiyuk Bezeh She'omer Eschem. The question that we say, why does he say Eschem? Uloi rak shetzorich biur lomo omer Eschem. He's not just questioning why does he say Eschem and not Eisonu? Elegam bazeh she'omer Eschem v'lo Eisonu, which means there's one thing saying Eschem, you, and here he is saying that he should say Eisonu. Why? If he would just say Hashem Elokeinu, not why is he saying Eschem? And we explained before that Eschem means after Matan Torah. But here the question is not just why he says Eschem, but why doesn't he say Eisonu shal yidei zeh yesh mokim litos? Because there is still room for a mistake by saying Eschem. Why? The fact that he is saying Elokeinu, machnis atzme b'chlal, and that he does include himself, hurag b'negeya leho'iker. That's only b'negeya to the main thing, Kabbalas el malchus shemayim. He does accept the heavenly yoke, the yoke of the heavenly kingdom. He says Elokeinu. So fine. But it still doesn't talk about the pratim. It doesn't talk about edus chukim and mishpatim. Aval benegeya leprotei ha'inyonim, the edus v'chukim and mishpatim. But as far about the details of the matters, the difference, edus chukim mishpatim, u'moitzi es atzmei mehaklal. He is excluding himself from the community, from the general, from all people. Basically, if he would have just said Hashem Elokeinu, okay, adds that would be, why do we say Hashem Elokeinu? So why does he say Eschem? That's one question. But here we have an additional problem by him saying Eschem. In other words, if it's just the issue of Eschem, maybe Hashem Elokeinu would have been enough. But because we're also talking about, he's saying Eidus Chukim Mishpatim, why are you saying Eschem? Because the fact that you included itself does not tell us anything about the details. While you might include yourself in the general mitzvahs, but when it comes to the specifics, Eidus Chukim Mishpatim, you're saying Eschem. So it should say oisonu to make clear that even the Eidus Chukim Mishpatim is also, you are part of it. You're not outside of Klal Yisrael, even when it comes to the details. Not just that you're accepting generally the kingdom, Hashem's kingdom, but you also accept it to the extent of Eidus Chukim Mishpatim. So the Rebbe is going to explain what is these two inyonim, the general mitzvahs and the Eidus Chukim Mishpatim. Why would we think, even though he says Hashem Elokeinu, we would think that he's only accepting the general kingdom, but still he's excluding himself from these details? What's the general kingdom? What's the difference? So the Rebbe explains like this. The Rebbe explains mitzvahs have two parts. One part is we're doing the mitzvah because Hashem commanded the mitzvah. That's equal by all mitzvahs. Then each category of mitzvah is observed because it's special quality. So mitzvahs that are logical, we explain them, we do the mitzvah, they're also logical. Mitzvahs that are not logical, chukim, we do them because we listen to Hashem. And mitzvahs that are edus, that's the second part. One part is mitzvahs across the board. Let's look inside. We can say the explanation. The mitzvahs shnei inyonim. In mitzvahs there is two aspects. The mitzvah that are command of Hashem. The Eibush that told us to do the mitzvahs. Makes no difference what the mitzvah is. One part of a mitzvah is a commandment of Hashem. The inyan zeh, this idea that it's a commandment of Hashem, hu b'chol ha-mitzvahs b'shoveh, that's equal in all mitzvahs. So now we have a second part. V'zeh sheha-mitzvahs, the second part, nechlokes b'gimel sugim. There's three categories of mitzvahs. Eidus, chukim, u'mishpatim. That's the second aspect of mitzvah. One aspect in all mitzvahs is that Hashem told us to do so. The second aspect is there's a difference of Eidus, Chukim, Mishpatim. So these two areas also apply when we do a mitzvah. When we do a mitzvah, Shnei inyonim elu hegam b'kiyum ha-mitzvahs. They also apply when we do a mitzvah. When we do a mitzvah, in the kavanah of the mitzvah, we have two inyanim. We have one inyan, this is a mitzvah of the Eibishter. We're doing it because Hashem told us to do so. The second area is, what specific mitzvah is it? The kavanahs of mitzvahs, shnei inyanim. There's two ideas. We have a kavanah klolis, a general intent, which is lekayim tzivui Hashem, to fulfill the command of the Eibishter. The kavanah zuhi b'chol ha-mitzvahs b'shoveh. That intent is all mitzvahs equally. Any mitzvah we do, we're doing the mitzvah to fulfill the rotzin, the will of Hashem. But then you have an additional part, the kavanah protis, then you have a specific individual. Kavanah Kiyum ha-mitzvah. Either we do the mitzvah mipnei shehi edus, because it's a testimony. What testimony means, it's an ois v'zikorin. It's a sign and a remembrance. Al-Eza Inyan reminds us about something. We're eating matzah and Pesach to remind us about the exodus of Egypt, that we didn't have time to bake bread. Oi, sometimes we do a mitzvah mipnei shehi chuko gzeira. This is a statute, this is a decree. Eibishter made a decree, that's what we do. Or sometimes this is also something which is rational, the intellect dictates. It's dictated also by the intellect. So these are the three differences how the kavanah the mitzvahs. One kavanah, general kavanah, is we're doing what Hashem wants us to do. And then you have the specific kavanah for that particular mitzvah. Sometimes it's a testimony, sometimes it's a statue, and sometimes it's a logical, also mitzvah sechel. So Yeshאלך ben chochem. So what does the ben chochem ask? What is the edus chuk mishpatim? The kivon shekol hamitzvahs heim tzivui Hashem. Since all mitzvahs are commandments of the Eibishter of Hashem, manegeya ha'inyan the edus chukim umishpatim. So why is it important to us, the idea of edus chukim mishpatim? Let's just do the mitzvahs of Kimat Rotzen Hashem. We're doing what Hashem wants us to do. That's it. Why do we need to have this categorized? Why do we need to have it separate types of mitzvahs? Why not just do mitzvahs? Hashem told us to do the mitzvahs. So that means to say, now we understand. So even though the Ben Chochem agrees to mitzvahs, but the fact that he challenges that why do we need the specifics of the mitzvahs, maybe you might think that he is actually not just asking it, but he is saying it, we don't need it. So he should say, that's why the Maimer specifically says, even after he says Elokeinu, so he accepts that the Eibush that we have to do the mitzvahs, but yesh mokim litos, but we still make a mistake when he says Ma Hashem Elokeinu eschem ha'edu zachuk ha'eschem shebenegei liproto inyonim, that when it comes to the details of the matters, the Eidus chukim u'mishpatim, he's excluding himself from the community, from the general, from all. The Rebbe explained why the Friedrich Rebbe went through this extra piece to say that it should say Oisonu, so that we don't make a mistake that even though he says Hashem Elokeinu, which includes itself, but that would only apply to generally accepting the mitzvahs of Hashem. We have to do it, but still, we would still have an issue that maybe when it comes to the specific categories of the mitzvah, he challenges. He says, why do you need it for? So he should have said not eschem, because maybe he agrees for the Malchus Shemayim for all the mitzvahs. Maybe he doesn't agree for this difference. He should have said Eisonu. So then you would know that he's only asking a question. Why do we need to do that? But not that he disagrees with it. And that's why the Friedrich Rebbe adds that even after we say Eisonu, Hashem Elokeinu, it still would be better to say Oisonu, not Eschem, because that way we would know that he includes it. And the Rebbe will explain now why Taka do we need to know all these things. What is Taka Eidus Chukim and Mishpatim? Why does Eidus come before Chukim and Mishpatim, as the Rebbe asked before? And the Rebbe will explain the different levels that we draw down of godliness when we do a mitzvah of Eidus, which is actually the highest level. Eidus brings down Atzmus. Eidus is a testimony. What we bring down when we're Mekayim a mitzvah of Chukim, over there you bring down Sovev Kol Ha'almim, which is beyond the world but connected to the world. And through Mishpatim, logical, we bring down the oir hagvul that is mislabish in the oilmas. Let's look inside. Dalet. Yuvan ze'alpi hamevur b'maimer hanal. We'll understand it based on what's explained in the above maimer. Shegim ul ha'inyonim. The eidus chukim u'mishpotim heim b'chol hamitzvos. Really, all mitzvahs have all these three categories. Just like you have three categories in the mitzvahs in general, but each mitzvah specifically also has eidus chukim u'mishpotim. So first of all, shegam ha-mitzvahs, the chukim u'mishpotim nikroim b'shem eidus. All the mitzvahs, not only mitzvahs which commemorate an event that are a testimony, but all the mitzvahs of chukim and mishpatim are recalled with the name eidus. Mitzvahs in general, k'moshe kosuv. The pasuk says, "Vayokom eidus b'Yaakov goymer," that the Eibishter placed eidus. Eidus is a reference to Torah. All of the Torah, all the mitzvahs are all called, in Yaakov he put eidus. So that means that all mitzvahs are called eidus. Ba'al derech zehu b'negeya l'chukim. And the same thing is all mitzvahs have a part which is also chukim. Because shegam b'ha mitzvahs shal pitam. Because even in rational mitzvahs, mitzvahs that have a reason, it doesn't mean that they're not chukim also. Eidus have a reason we're commemorating. Vafilu mishpatim, but mishpatim are totally logical. Eidus, at least, we need the Torah to tell us what to commemorate. But eidus of mishpatim also have a chukah in them. Why? Because the reason for that we have for the eidus of mishpatim is generally for why we do the mitzvah. But there are still details that don't have explanation. Hatam hurak al klolus mitzvah. The reason that we do the mitzvah, it's only for the general mitzvah, but v'lo ala pratim. The specific details of the mitzvah are chukim. There's not understood. Why do we have to do it in specific ways? That's in a manner of, that's my decree, that's my chukah, that's my statute. This is what I have said to do. So, also reasonable mitzvahs, eidus, do have part of them that are chukim. The same thing is true mishpatim. All mitzvahs also have mishpatim. Shegam b'ha-mitzvahs, the eidus v'chukim, yesha inyan de mishpatim. That also in the mitzvahs of eidim v'chukim, there is the idea of mishpatim. The Rebbe explains elsewhere that we have to do them as if they're rational mitzvahs. The Rebbe will explain later on also that there is the idea of mishpatim within the chukim. Basically, first the Rebbe brings down, it's not really three different categories of mitzvahs, which they are, but in each one of these categories, there's all three. In every mitzvah, there is eidus. In every mitzvah, there is chukim. And in every mitzvah, mishpatim, in any one of the categories. But inyan hu, the idea is the begilui elokus shalidei ha-mitzvahs. The revelation of godliness that takes place through the mitzvahs is gimel madreges b'chlolus. Generally speaking, there are three steps of what level of revelation of godliness is brought down through the mitzvahs. There is an oir hamislabish ba'olamos. There is a light which dresses up in the world. The Bechlolus, generally speaking, that oir is called oir hamemali. That's the oir that fills the word, fills the word. The oir shalamaylo mihislapshus ba'ilumos, and then you have an oir which is higher than dressing up in the world, but still abul shayich lo'ilumos. It's higher than dressing up. It can dress up, but it still has a connection to the world. The Beklalus, generally speaking, who oir hasebim, that's the light that surrounds the world, the oir hasebim, the makif. The atzmus oir ein sof, and the third level is the essence of the ein sof. It's beyond, above, of having a connected to world. It's not like Seviv, which is above, but is connected. This has no connection to the world. Explains the Oir HaMemale, because why is the different come down through the different mitzvahs? Which mitzvah gets what? So he says like this: the Oir HaMemale Musagam B'Seichel, the light that fills the world, the light of Hashem that comes down into the world, that's grasped also intellectual. That's why, how do we draw it down? That is through the idea of laws that are mishpatim, are hasagas haseichel, that the seichel grasps the mishpatim of the mitzvah, or mitzvah's mishpatim. But the light of the seviv, ein shayich boy hasagas hachiyu. Over there, it does not apply. It doesn't fit. You can't grasp what it is. You can't say. You can't see what it is. You can't see it positively. You only know what it's not. The way you know what it is by negating what it's not, but you have no direct understanding. The fact that you know and understand that in this light, it's impossible to be. You can't grasp, the intellect cannot grasp it. Who inyan bitl ha'asagir. That means that you negate your understanding. So which category of mitzvah brings down the sever? That's by fulfilling the statutes. Because what is a statue? What is it's a gezeda. Over there, what's the idea of a statue is that he negates and puts away his intellect. That's the chukim. As we say, ein lecha rishus lahara. You have no right to think. So that's bittul haseichel is in sovev. That's the inyan of chukim. Chukim is bittul haseichel. To do the mitzvahs, we don't understand that we do the mitzvahs. But the higher level, when we talk about the level of atzmus enisov, which is higher than sovev, the highest level, atzmus enisov, who is not defined, he cannot be connected to the world. Ein shayich loymar gam. We can't even say shehu mushlal mahasogas hasechel. We can't say with regards to atzmus, you can't say that he is negated from comprehending with the seichel. When we talk about soivev kol almim, you're saying soivev kol almim cannot be comprehended. But when you talk about atzmus, you can't even say that it cannot be comprehended. Because to say that something is on a higher level, they have to have some connection to say, well, it's not that. So soivev, you can say, can't comprehend. But atzmus, you can't even say that it's negated from comprehension. It's on a different level altogether. Ukemavur b'Tanya, as explained in the Tanya. Sha'oimer ala Kodesh Baruch Hu she'efsher la'asigoi. One who would say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oh, you can't grasp the Eibishter. Who koimer, that could be equated, that makes so much sense, like saying Aleiza Chochma Rama V'Amuka, saying about some idea, a wisdom, a high and deep. She'efsher l'masha b'yadayim. This is such a deep, such a refined, high and deep idea. You know what? You can't touch it with your hands. What do you mean touch it with your hands? Anybody hears will laugh at you. What are you talking about? An idea you don't take with your hands. So you can't say about this wisdom, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's not feelable. It's not in that area. What does it mean? Because when you negate from something, it still has to be in the same realm. Ki inyan hashlila she'omrim al eze davar shu mushlo medavar sheni. When we say negate something, we say, well, this is negated or this is not. The second item, that shayich dafke b'dvarim sheyesh yachas b'neihem. That only applies when there is matters that have a relationship. There is something between them. You're saying this is not that but there is some connection. But v'haseichel v'hamishush, talking about intellect and feeling, they're two separate ideas. This is intellect, that's feeling. There's no relationship. So you can't say that it's such a deep wisdom you can't feel it. Feeling is not, seichel and feeling don't have a relationship. Saying about the Eibishter you can't grasp him is not Bichlal, it's not in that same area. You can't even say that. And the Rebbe adds in the brackets that when it comes to the Eibishter, it's even more than we talk about feeling and the intellect, because at the end of the day, both feeling and the intellect are physical created beings. So there is some relationship, as opposed to the Eibishter has zero relationship. Ula yes'lach, the Rebbe says, perhaps we can add, Shebamoshul the seichel mishush, when we give the example of intellect and feeling, kivon sheshneim heim nivroim mugbalim, since they're both limited created being, yesh yachas b'neim, there's still a relationship between feeling and the intellect. But the most nimshal, which we give for the Eibishter, over there it doesn't fit at all. When we say that it doesn't apply to say about Hashem that you can't grasp him, that is even more, that it doesn't fit to say on a logical idea that you can't feel it. It's even a greater difference than saying that you can't touch a logical idea. Over there, it's not as funny as Yitzchak Loi. It's not as distinct. By the Eibishter, it's Bechlal. The Rebbe says that it's even more. So because it's Bechlal, not in the gather of understanding at all, Hamshochas Atzmus Eirin Sof Eino Gamali de Inyan HaChukim. Bringing down the Atzmus Eirin Sof doesn't take place even through Chukim, Bitla Seichel. Even through negating the Seichel, you still can't get the level of Atzmus, not through Chukim. Because Bitla Seichel means there's still a connection, but you're Mevatel. Kivon shelegabe Atzmus Eirin Sof, ein shaykh loimer gam in the shlilas haseichel. With regards to Atzmus Ein Sof, we can't even say the idea of negating Seichel. Chukah is negating Seichel. So Chukah cannot bring down Atzmus because it can bring down Sovev, but he can't bring down the Atzmus because Atzmus is even not even together to negate it. So how do we get the mitzvahs Atzmus of Ein Sof? That comes because mitzvahs are the will and the command of Atzmus. That's why you bring down Atzmus. How do we bring that down? This is the edus of the mitzvahs. Within the mitzvah itself, within the chukim or within the mishpatim, there is the edus of the mitzvah. Now we're going to explain why all mitzvahs are called edus, the Rebbe said before. The shekol ha-mitzvahs, gam ha-mitzvahs, the chukim u'mishpatim, the fact that all the mitzvahs, even the mitzvahs of chukim u'mishpatim, nikroim b'shem edus, they're also called edus. It says edus b'Yakov, it said it before the pasuk by Yosem, is nikro hulifi shehem mamshichim umegalim helem ha'atzmi, the atzmus oid ein sof, because they draw down and they reveal the essence obscurity of the atzmus ein sof. The mitzvah brings down the essence, the helem ha'atzmi of atzmus sof, shelamaylo gam niseg, which is higher than seven. That's the edus within the mitzvah itself. The kamoi she'inyan ha'edus bepashtus. Just like edus on the simple level, what is edus? Hu al dover hanelam davke. You testify about something we don't know, something which is hidden. The al dover hagolu ein shayich edus, something which is revealed. Can't testify about it. You see it. It's open. Mekivan shu golui, that's open. That's revealed. Furthermore, there's something that is open. Then you have something which is not open now, but it's going to be revealed later on. Even on a matter that is going to be revealed, you don't need any testimony from that. The Rebbe brings down from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that there's no edus from something. Talk about the moon, you're going to find out later on. So we don't need, you can't have testimony even on something which is going to be revealed. So just like it's literally edus means on something which is obscure and it's not known and will never be known, al derech zehu beruchnis. Similarly, it's on the spiritual level. The oir hamemale, the light that fills the world, hudavar hagolu shemusig b'seichel. That is something which is revealed, which can be grasped intellectually. And the oir hasevev, which is higher than being dressed up in the world, umilsa davida liglui. That's a matter that is going to be revealed, which means helem sheshayich ligilui. It's obscure, but it's connected to gilui. That means milsa davida liglui. It's connected to gilui. Why? Because through the grasping in the light that fills the world, the oir memale that dresses up in the world, the oir that fills, that dresses in the world, which is only a shine, which is evident from the fact, how could it dress up in the world? There must be only a ray. You come to the knowledge, you recognize that there is a light which is higher, separate, distinct from the world. Which he is the source, that from him, from the Soiv of Kulam, comes the Ha'ara that dresses up. The Inyan Ha'edus, and the idea of Edus, who ba'atzmus oir ein sof. This is in the essence of ein sof. Shalemaila gam seviv, which is higher also than level of seviv. Shahu nelam legamri. Atzmus ein sof is totally nelam. It's not avida legluya. It's obscure. V'zeu mashakola mitzvahs nikroyim edus. And this is what all mitzvahs are called edus. Lefi shehem mamshichim umegalim atzmus ein sof shalamaylo gam miseviv. Because they draw down and they reveal the essence of the Ein Sof, which is even higher than Seviv. So mitzvahs are also called Eidus. All the mitzvahs are mamshich from the Atzmus Ein Sof, because that is the Eidus part, because they're megala that the Eibishter is the Metzabah HaMitzvah, Atzmus Ein Sof. So every time we do any mitzvah, we bring down the level which is even higher than Soviv and certain level of Malach. Soviv Kulalmim, you get a glimpse from Mimali, because Mimali tells you that it's only a glimpse, that Mimali is only Ha'orah. That's why it comes down in such a small level. That's why it can be Mimali. But that points to something bigger. But it's not Bihislapshus, you just know of it from Mimali, you know, Seviv. It's an Edus, it's Al Dover Hanelam. But Atzmus is not Edus, it's not Seviv, it's not a Chukah, it's something totally beyond the level of Atzmus. So that's how the Rebbe explained the old, and this is really not Edus, Chukim, and Mishpatim, different categories, but every mitzvah. So the bottom line, every mitzvah we do, we're basically mamshich three hamshochas. We're mamshich because they all have to be done in all levels. So we're mamshich the eir hamemale, we're mamshich the eir hasever, and we're mamshich the eir, the atzmus ein sof, that is higher. The Rebbe will go on to explain more the edus and the chukim. And we'll also understand now, right now, after this explanation, we see that the Edus bring down a higher level. One of the questions the Rebbe said before is, how come he starts Moha Edus? Because Edus is talking the highest level, and then comes Chukim, and then comes Mishpatim. Okay, we will continue further next time.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.